Hello and welcome to Waylander's Wandering, where today I'm going to be showing you how we can get done something that we as miniature painters and wargamers tend to ignore a little bit, and this is our terrain pieces. I'm going to be demonstrating using this 15mm scale factory building from Core Gaming. But these techniques will work on anything from the World War I, World War II pillboxes all the way up through to your Warhammer 40,000 Imperial buildings. Any type of building or any game system will benefit from these painting techniques. So without further ado, let's crack on. First off, we will get some paint onto our textured palette. There we go. Then take in my Army Painter Masterclass Mighty Dry Brush. We will wet the brush, dab the water off on a piece of paper towel, and test on the back of the hand that the brush is cool, not wet. And then using the edge of the brush, we will take some of our paint, work it into the bristles, and with a stippling motion from around 45 degrees, come in from the top of the building, working down and stipple everything that we need this Eshin grey on. You don't need to go fast with this technique, by the way. In fact, slower is probably quicker, because you're trying to get the paint on the surfaces, leaving any underhangs clear of paint, which will give you an instant black shade from the Colourforge matte black primer that I've used on this particular miniature. So I will stipple all of this and bring you back when everything is nicely covered. Now that we've got that first coat of Eshin grey on, we have something to basically begin to work on. So the next stage will be to take a Mechanicus Standard Grey from Citadel, or any other dark grey, and repeat the stippling process, but maybe not go quite to the bottom this time. So maybe 3/4 of the way down, maybe a little more, but we'll see. But again, we come in at around 45 degrees and just stipple. We want to pretty much cover everything, but leave the undersides and recesses clear. And again, slower will be better. And as you can see on camera, this leaves quite a nice kind of texture on the building and the finish on the building, because, well, whichever way you look at it, these large flat surfaces are kind of flat and boring unless we give them some texture ourselves with the paintbrush. So we'll stipple in and give everything a coat of the Mechanicus Standard Grey, and I will carry on with this and bring you back for the next stage. With that second stage of stippling complete and some nice texture appearing on the building now, it's time to go into a more traditional dry brush method to complete the sort of stonework of the building, the concrete. So what we'll do is go progressively paler greys with Dawnstone, Administratum grey, and possibly even up to Celestial grey. And we'll see where we go with that, and give each level of dry brushing onto the building. Again, not too heavy, but we want to leave a visible effect. So let's get a bit of this Dawnstone onto the palette. Should be more than plenty. And still without washing the brush, because you want to waste time if you don't have to. Get some of this Dawnstone onto the dry brush, work it in nicely. Let's test on the back of the hand, see what's leaving a decent layer but not too heavy, and a loose grip at the top of the brush because we don't want too much pressure on there. It will come in from the top down, and using a straight up and down dry brushing method, we will come in and go all the way down each side of the building, including the two flat roofs, which we will do sort of in the centre to the edge, and get all of this done. I will do the Dawnstone, and then looking at the way it's going, I will definitely do the Administratum grey as well. And I'll bring you back in if we decide we need to do the Celestial grey as well. So there we go, all the detail has now been lifted on that concrete, and we can see just how good it looks with just the stippling and dry brush. For this final stage, I'm going to skip that Celestial grey and go for the more off-white Ulthuan grey, and literally just go for a very light dry brush that's just going to pick up the edges, and it's going to work much more like a classic edge highlight. But because we're dry brushing it on, it will have a nice, soft, more kind of feathered edge, and this will work better for something like cement, so a concrete building and that kind of thing, and will work for all your terrain pieces going forward. So again, very lightly, we're just trying to hit the edges, come down onto the miniature just to lift those very edge highlights up, so these cornice pieces along the top and the midpoints, the support pillars, and around the door and window frames. So very light, just to finish it off, maybe a little bit of work on the corner there. Not forgetting that this technique, especially with something like the sort of imperial ruins that you get with Warhammer 40,000, this technique is absolutely fantastic for those, because you've got so much detail and so many heavy corners. It is absolutely fantastic, and the stippling part of the technique works particularly well on things like World War II pillboxes and bunkers and revetments and things like that. And I suppose using a different colour palette, you can do sort of any sort of stone effect and get it all done on, I don't know, medieval castles and fantasy castles and things as well. This is an absolutely fantastic technique that many of us wargamers and miniature painters forget about, because this is really quick, as you can see, and we're going to get our terrain piece that again, as gamers, we kind of ignore mostly, done to a reasonably high level reasonably quickly. So yeah, we can't really go wrong with this kind of technique, guys. If you want pretty terrain done pretty quick and looks pretty damn good. So most times I've said pretty in a row for a very long time. Now that all that lovely dry brushing has had time to dry and we can see how well the effect has gone, the next thing to do is to start on these detail pieces. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some Citadel Contrast Black Legion straight from the pot and fill in all these windows and doors and their frames to give ourselves a nice base to work on. So being careful that we don't get any where we've already been, and on the dry brushing I will fill in some Black Legion on all of these windows like so, and these couple of doors. With all those detail pieces now blacked in, it's time to start on the doors, window frames, etc. So for the doors and window frames, we're going to take a little cracked blue, which we'll thin down on the palette till it's about there, and come in and very gently block them in. Now, the reason that we're going for this particular colour is because of the way the building is. We want a nice, strong, highly pigmented, relatively intense colour for these bits, just so that it stands out. Because when you're looking at things on these tiny little scales, high contrast is kind of your friend. So being careful not to get any of this blue anywhere we don't want it, because, well, not a disaster, because we can always repaint bits. It would require an awful lot of work to get it back to this stage. We will fill in all these doors and window frames, not hitting the black areas where the glass would have been in the windows, because it's a war zone, guys. I'm pretty sure that most windows don't last very long in a war zone. I mean, I've got no experience, it's just an assumption. I think it's pretty solid, don't you? Okay, now that we've got all this blue done, as you can see, we've got a nice high contrast on all of this without hitting where the glass would have been on the window. So the next thing to do is to go into all this pipe work and the extractors in it, etc. Basically all the air conditioning pieces with Citadel Rakarth flesh, which probably need a couple of coats, but my Rakarth flesh is, well, it's kind of runny, so I can probably get away with using it straight from the pot. And we'll just block all of these pipes in, and the extractors and other grills around the building, get all that done. After which I will hit these cables and wires that we can see all over the building with Citadel Corn Red. So I will get all of that done and bring you back in when it's time to hit the metallics. Okay, now that we have those Rakarth flesh creamy coloured pieces all done on the conduits and the other parts of the air conditioning, or the parts I've decided are parts of the air conditioning, and we've got a nice red on all the cabling, the miniature is actually coming together quite nicely. So to continue on with this, we're going to go into the metallic parts, which will be things like this bit of corrugated steel here, these bits of rebar on here, these bullet casings and things, and anything else I can see. And what we will also do is we will use a sponge, get a little bit of this metallic paint, dab it off till it's nearly all gone, and dab on to these bits, which I will probably do first because that's the bit that you better to show you. So we get a little bit of this lead belcher, clean the majority off on a tissue, and then on these cream parts, what we'll do is we'll just dab in and give it a weathered effect, and we'll do it on the doors and window frames as well, because probably going to be metal on this factory, just to give these a patina of age and make it look like it's been there for a while and hasn't like just been decorated in the middle of a war zone, because I feel that might be a little bit unrealistic. So we can be as heavy or as light as we wish with this. Some places heavier, some places lighter, just to give more kind of realistic effect again. And don't worry if you get any of this chipping dabs on the black of the windows, because we can always fill those in again later and make them look like the black interior of the lightless building. And there we have those metallic parts sorted. So what we will do now is take some citadel colour Nuln oil and bring everything back a bit, because it is in some ways a little bright all over. So going over the blue parts, all of this cream, let's bring that back. We will get the, well, what could be considered the final touches all done. So as I said, hitting the pretty much everywhere that we've just done. So the windows, doors, all the cream parts and the metallic parts. We will get this Nuln oil on. And I'll bring you back once I have been across the entire miniature and it's had a bit of time to cure. Well, there we go. One terrain piece completed in a relatively short timeline there. I noticed that there was like a blanket thing there that I did with some auric flesh, I believe it was, and a piece of paper there. I also painted in these rubbish cardboard boxes around the sides using Zandri dust, highlighted with a bit of a shabty bone, and then went around all along the bottom with an uneven sort of higgledy-piggledy, uppy-downy quick coat of Bale Tan green wash, just to make it look like it had been there a while and it had some sort of moss and dirt and stuff growing up the side of it. All things being equal, I'm quite pleased with the way this turned out. I hope that Mark at Core Gaming, who's going to be using this as the image in his Etsy store, link in the pinned comment down below, is going to be satisfied with my work. As I said somewhere else, this is the first commission job I've taken on in the best part of 2 decades, and yeah, I'm quite happy with this. It's a solid, few hours work, and all things being equal, I'm quite happy with this. I hope that everybody's learnt something from the stippling techniques and the techniques I've used, and shown how quickly and you can get effective terrain pieces done, so you can improve your own battlefields. Thank you for staying to the end. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and do all the YouTube things. If you want to support me in other ways, there's Patreon and Ko-fi linked in the down below, and various other things linked in the down below. So if you want to support me that way, you can. Of course, none of that is necessary. I mean, quite frankly, if you don't like what I'm doing, leave a dislike as well. Thank you for staying to the end. Thank you for listening to me waffle on. I hope you really do enjoy looking at this as much as I enjoyed painting it. I love each and every one of your faces. Speak to you again very, very soon, and goodbye.